Welcome back, everybody. It's two guys and a stack of comics. My name's Mike. Over there's my buddy Reed, and behind me is a stack of comics. And that stack just keeps getting bigger. I've got more to pile on at Reed, and it's time for me to get another short box. But
Always good to add to the stack. And one comic me and you have been adding to the stack lately have been some of these Ultimate Universe comic books from Marvel. While I don't think all of them have been a hit, me and you did not like the X-Men one. And the Ultimates has been very hit or miss. Ultimate Black Panther and Ultimate Spider-Man have been very enjoyable series. But one of the interesting wrinkles to this is in these comic books, it appears that the characters are moving in real time. So as the series goes, 1 month has passed between each issue, and so that with that, it would seem the characters might be aging in real time as well with the books. So the real time thing, Mike, as far as it being 1 month in time, between issue, reflects that in the comic and the possibility of those characters aging. Do you like that concept? Do you think that's a good concept? What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's kind of cool. When you pick up the issue, it's the same month. I think it's the same month, right? Or close to the same
Yeah,
month.
like you'll have
Yeah,
issue
like
three is in
July
May,
was
and then you'll pick
July.
up in issue four is in June. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's kind of cool um, to see the progress that way. It
Hmm.
makes me think of three things. Number one, that somebody really planned out the arc for it to work this way on these two books, at least. I don't know if the other one, because I'm
It
not
does appear to be reflected in the others as well,
okay.
though. To be
So,
honest, I haven't been following those as much.
so there's some grand plan, and you can kind of foresee it's probably going to be a year. I like that about it. I kind of like the fact that it walks the character through that month, but also it comes to mind like what else happened during that month that I didn't get to read.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you think of that as a fan, like, okay, it's September now, but what really happened in August? So I don't know if because the whole book doesn't seem like it lasts a month. It's more like a
Yeah, you're
week.
kind of getting a snapshot of a day or two in
Yeah,
a month, and then it progresses the story forward.
right.
Um, I think the cool thing about it that I really enjoy, one, I do think if you're going to do multiversal stuff, you should have something that makes it stand out from the standard universe, right? And I think having the 616 Marvel and the Ultimate Marvel, having where the Ultimate Universe would move in real time and things happen per month, that is definitely a wrinkle that does not exist in the main universes because all of our heroes would be in their 80s at this point at
Yeah.
the very least. And so I do think it gives it a cool wrinkle. I think the other thing that you get is you have less reliance on the 6 issue story arc, and you may leave your room to tell one individual good issue, and then it carries forward to the next month, and you're just invested in the overall story, as opposed to where it seems like with a lot of comic books now, you're basically buying 1/6 of a story every month, and it's kind of
Yeah.
useless without the other 5 parts or preceding 2 or 3 parts,
And then
whatever
it's
it might
done.
be.
So I think this one is heading to be at least a 12 issue arc, right? One for every month.
Yeah, they've set up the timeline that this Ultimate Universe was set up by the evil Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe called the Maker, and basically he's coming back in 18 months, is what they've kind of established as the main sort of driving thing, and so I think you at least have a couple years probably of storytelling around that, or a year and a half.
As long
I
as the
think
sales are good.
as long as sales are good, and it seems like it certainly is. I
Yeah.
think the thing where it is interesting too is I think one of the complaints that we have about comic books is that there used to be evolution of these characters, and we used to be able to trust the creatives that, Peter Parker or Dick Grayson or whoever would be, they'd age probably 2 years for every decade, but there was at least progress. These characters always seemed to move forward, yes, at an infinitely slower rate than real time for people, but there was at least progress for it. That has seemingly stopped in a lot of comic books where, you'll get to a character. Tim Drake's the one that always stands out to me in that, like, Tim Drake was very clearly a young teenager, progressed to where it seemed like Tim Drake was in his 20s or starting to be 20. And then now he seemed to be reverted back to being like 16 or 17 again. Yeah, and so I think that Peter Parker did the same thing, right? He was climbing up, seemed always around 30, and then now they've sort of pushed it where Peter kind of just seems like he's 20 something in the comic books now. And I think that what would be interesting with this wrinkle they're doing with the Ultimate Universe is not only do you get storytelling where the progression of the character should follow as they're obviously aging, you will see their life circumstance change. And I think that's one of the things we miss of comic books. I think is that definitive feeling of there was like an era of the character, right? There was the college era or the high school era or whatever it was. We've lost that a lot now where, despite the fact that these comics are supposed to be in continuity, honestly, you could grab any Iron Man run of the past 20 years or 10 years until anybody one runs after the other because they don't really connect anymore. You can't really see the, oh well, that leads to what happened a decade ago. It's not really there. And so I think that's a cool differentiation that the Ultimate Universe could do is if say Ultimate Spider-Man would run 150 issues and Peter would be in his 40s by the time he got to that, maybe his kids are in their 20s, kind of thing. That would really make, I think, an impact for readers where it would reward you for reading the whole series. I think we've seen a lot of success. That Invincible series that they did with Robert Kirkman, the comic book, that all kind of aged in real time, and you saw the character progress, and a lot of people
Yeah,
got invested in that. And I think if they do that, I think it's really brilliant for this because it will differentiate so much from 616 and make it where it'll be hard to drop a book unless you really hate it because
yeah.
it's like, nah, man, if I ever jump back on, I will have definitively missed a portion of that person's life. I think it's a really good idea. I don't know that it would work across the board for every character, but I do think, I don't know, Mike, I'd be interested in your thoughts. If you could have DC or Marvel just go, you know what, we're implementing this in the main line and our characters are going to age in real time going forward, would you be good with that or would you prefer it not to be that way?
I would be good with it because the continuity is just the lack of continuity or the messiness of it has really caused me to drop many characters that I love dearly in the modern age. I don't buy Thor anymore. I don't buy Iron Man. I don't know what's going on with Daredevil. I don't buy Captain America anymore. These are characters that I love. Um, and I need a good jumping on point. And this Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man has really done it for me. And same with Black Panther. I got this jumping on point, and I think it's great. I think the industry as a whole has gotten to a place that nobody could have ever imagined back in 1940 and 1960 when you're creating these characters
Be
and
around 80 years later, yeah.
yeah, they can't be 80 years old. Although in the Jay Garrick Flash miniseries, he was like 80. But
Yeah.
the thing of it is like, here are these characters. They're young, they're vibrant, they're out fighting crime, so they've got to be young, vibrant, and healthy. Yes, some are immortal, like Superman, so he doesn't have to age.
For
Uh,
Wolverine, yeah, those
same with
kinds.
Wonder Woman and Wolverine. But what do you do with Peter Parker or Bruce Wayne? Like these are like real people apparently. And Bruce Wayne would have been buried 20 years ago. He would have been dead. And Peter Parker would be in his 70s.
70s, yeah, late 70s.
Yeah, he'd be in his 70s, and hey, I can't get the webs to come out anymore, and I don't know what I did with my cell phone. Can somebody find my car keys? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just that's just the way it is. So, and then you can age him 2 years every decade, but still he's over 40. He shouldn't be swinging through Manhattan anymore, at least not without a back brace and and some Bengay to rub on his
Ease it
shoulder
up.
after.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to do something. You either got to you know multiverse
I
or
think it's an interesting conversation that I think part of what makes these characters appealing is the timeless nature of it, that Batman is always Batman. But I think what we've gotten to now is because the competition has changed around comic books, um, for some reason, modern creators don't seem to be able to do the progression that older writers used to. I don't know if it's lack of investment, lack of pay opportunity, whatever it may be. But I do think this would solve a lot of problems for modern creators and for modern comic book fans if you had if DC said relaunch they're going to relaunch next year. and all of the characters were going to age in real time. And you had a definitive starting point of, hey, Batman's 26 at the beginning of this thing, and a decade from now he's 36. You might have where you could get investment in some of these characters aging and getting older and feeling like the stories matter. Because I think that's the thing. Older creators used to do stuff where things mattered. You would have certain events that you knew took place. Those were kind of absolutes in the character's past, like the death of Gwen Stacy for Spider-Man, or Bane breaking Batman's back, that kind of thing. We've lost that now. We've redone these stories so many times, and I think part of it's because we don't know how to be inventive with the storytelling anymore. When you look at the fact of characters like Batman, where they were able to integrate Ra's al Ghul and Bane and different characters every decade, you didn't always have to rely on the Joker. You didn't always have to rely on recycling the same villains over and over and over again, because they were able to create new ones that stood out and really stood the test of time. We don't seem to be able to do that anymore. It just doesn't seem to be the case. And whatever reason's driving that, I think then what the solution to that is for your readers is, if you started Batman with a #1 issue next year and you knew Batman's aging in real time, and in this series, if I read it 5 years from now, this will be his 5 year kind of story, and he's older. I do think that would drive a little more
I would,
importance behind the book than it has right now, where it just feels
I,
like another issue.
I would start buying Batman again. There's another book that I don't buy because I don't know what's going on. And if they did Ultimate Batman, and it's when, call it whatever universe you want, I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, I would buy it, and I would buy it for, it would be on my sub list, and I would buy it for years as long as the story started clean and it kept going. The failure to commit is another one. But yeah, DC, if you're listening, here's a couple of fans.
I
They
think
would
if
like
DC could do it, I think it would be great. I think it would be a great starting point. And I love this is where I've loved the Ultimate Universe so far. Is one of the things is, because it's going in real time, the events seem to matter a little bit. And when you see, I think one of the things is, if you do things in real time and you understand that these events are still going on when we're not reading, when something happens quickly in 6 issues, you understand that's actually 6 months. And so
yeah,
you could have where, in the Black Panther book, I think it's kind of interesting in that, they've had where T'Challa's really getting along with like Storm and Killmonger. It's like, well,
right.
because in the book, this is supposed to have taken place over 6 months. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, if you knew someone for 6 months and you were working with them every day, that's a lot different than, oh, they just showed up last issue and they're there. And so I think it's a good storytelling initiative. I think it could really work. I would love to see it integrated. Of course, will they do it? Probably not. I don't think they'll ever risk letting these characters age out. But I think it would be a great experiment. And I think
It would be
with
so
comic books,
cool.
with so much competition from indies and with books like Invincible and things like that, where the events matter, they happen, they have these fervent fans, because you get that feeling you used to with older comic books, that when something happens, when someone gets their leg ripped off or something like that in an Invincible thing, like that carries on. That's an injury forever. That character has that. It doesn't get retconned by a multiversal version of the same character or something like that. And I think if you had that kind of feel in DC and Marvel again, it would give them what they say they want. And I think that's the other thing, is I would kind of challenge. I think this is the thing that I look at modern writers with, and they always talk about wanting to reinvent characters for the modern audience, all that stuff. We hear that all the time. Then truly reinvent the character. Don't use Bruce Wayne anymore. Don't use Clark Kent. Don't use Peter Parker. Don't use Barry Allen. You want to reinvent, you think you need to reinvent the wheel because you think these audiences need a new character, then go create a new character. And we've
Yeah.
seen, if you do it right, Miles Morales has worked. There's fans behind that. It would actually give them something instead. What I don't like right now with comic books is there's a lot of reliance on, I want the nostalgia of Bruce Wayne, but I want to change and morph him into what I want him to be. But I also want you to carry all your old affinity for who he used to be. It's like, it
Mm.
doesn't work that way. You got to pick
It
your own
doesn't.
path
I
and go
think
a different way if you're going to try to change things.
you really hit on something there, that is so true. And you pick up a comic book of a character you love, you open it up and you don't recognize anything. That's because the writers have gone too far beyond the parameters. And
Yep.
I don't think they really realized that they're losing their base is the old guy like me who grew up with comics, who spends, 40 bucks a week at the comic book shop, but I'm not buying any more DC comics, but I love DC.
Yeah,
So,
I think
I
they've
mean,
just, like you said, they've lost touch. They've lost
they have
touch with
totally
things.
lost touch. And I think it would be okay to restart these characters from ground zero again, but do them respectfully. Don't say, well, I decided to change everything in the universe and Bruce Wayne is totally different now. And
Yeah, I think that's the
Superman's a
issue we're getting
weird
with this
guy.
absolute universe is, it's absolute Batman, okay, but he's Batman who grew up poor. He never had money. His parents weren't rich. He lives in Crime Alley. His parents, something happens to
That's
them.
Catwoman. That's Catwoman who grew
And
up
it's
poor.
like, okay, Alfred wasn't his family butler. I get it. Part of it's, well, we want to see what would Bruce Wayne be like without the money. I get that. At a certain point, once he grows up in Crime Alley, he doesn't have Wayne Enterprises. His parents weren't who his parents were. Alfred wasn't a part of his life. At some point, when is Batman not Batman anymore? At some point, it's just a guy named Bruce Wayne that you're trying to tell me is Batman. And again, I'm going to buy Absolute Batman. I hope it's good. I like Scott Snyder. I'm going to give that a lot of grace. But at a certain point, when you bend the character so much that it's no longer the character,
That's somebody
it's
different.
and it's not, oh well, money makes Bruce Wayne. No, it doesn't. But Bruce Wayne being who he is, growing up how he grew up, having what happened to his parents happen to his parents, who his parents were, that is what makes Batman Batman. You can't strip all that away. And I think that's so much of what they do now is, because there's no stakes to it and there's no aging of these characters, and you can always just go, well, Bruce is 35 again or whatever. You can have where you can do something ridiculous and it doesn't matter. And it's, one of the things that was crazy to me, I remember reading this year, Batman had where he had an adventure where he got his hand cut off. And I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I was like, you know what? If he has a robotic kind of hand going forward, and that carries on for years, at least it will be that that issue really mattered. And that could change Batman, where as a character, something happened to him that is a major marker for him. And of course, 20 issues later, they found a way to get some genetic material and reattach a version. And it's like, okay,
You
so
got to
you can't
hand it to
even,
him.
you can't, you can't even do that. And I think that's the thing is I don't expect an amazing story every month. I just expect what I read to actually matter. And I think that's the thing is the ultimate universe with this real-time aging, whether you love the stories or not, I will give them an absolute abundance of credit in terms of if they stick to this, it will make the stories matter. When something happens, it will really, really be there. And so I do hope with Ultimate, I hope they keep it up. I hope they keep using it. I would love to see this stick around. I hope there's no lazy retcons or, oh, well, Peter reset the timeline and now Aunt May is alive and Uncle Ben is dead again or whatever. I think
No,
if they stick to this path that they're on, it could really differentiate them. And I honestly think if they adapted real time aging for the characters, I think it would get comics back a lot of that feel of like, man, I don't want to miss an issue, as
yeah,
opposed to, I think as much as I buy it every month out of loyalty, there's times I pick up stuff like Iron Man or things like that. And I'm like, I probably could have skipped this entire 20 issue run, started with the next new number one, because unfortunately, there's always going to be a new number one every other year. And I probably wouldn't have missed much. And I think we got to get back to where there's some more impactful storytelling. And I think real time aging would do that, and it would force the writers to do that, where you have to, if you're going to do something, it has to stand because that character is aging. But I don't know. Let us know what you guys think below. Do you like this concept the Ultimate Universe is doing with the real time aging? Does it make you a little more invested in the stories? If they implemented this across the board, would you be interested in it? Always great to see what you guys think. As always, thank you guys for watching. God bless you. You have a great day.
thanks everybody.